blue shadows, moonrise desperados. For too long, yeah, God knows. On my way, on my way. Been searching for a sign to reach our horizon. We keep running from the cold. Let it fall right out of the darkness. Don't you know we belong to the stars? We're chasing the light, chasing the light, chasing the light, chasing the light. Keep my eyes wide open. I'm holding on to the golden, like a supernova. On my way, on my way. Oh, you gotta keep on feeding that fire. Oh, you gotta keep on dancing through the night. Let it fall right out of the darkness. Don't you know we belong to the stars? We're chasing the light, chasing the light, chasing the light, chasing the light. On my way, on my way, on my way, on my way, on chasing the light, chasing the light.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Katie Gideon, and I will be your on-camera facilitator. I am dialing in from a kind of chilly Edinburgh, Scotland. So super excited to join and have the January monthly setup, which as I was talking to my co-facilitator, Maya, who is going to be in the chat, who's joining us from also cold Colorado. I haven't done a monthly setup in a minute, but I'm super excited to do it. So it's nice to see everyone. Oh, welcome. Love seeing some of our returning socialers. Always great to have you guys in the chat. And I was already starting to see some new folks. So if you haven't already identified yourself as a first-time socialer or maybe a first-time monthly socialer, we'd love to see that in the chat, because this is, that time of year where we start to see a ton of new faces. And we're so excited that you all are joining us. These are so much fun. I feel like they've become a really great additional tool for helping maybe provide some ideas, some inspiration, as well as just kind of that reassuring guidance of kind of how to approach your journal, how to set it up. And I know some of those monthly pages were certainly ones that I was very, very nervous and intimidated by until I attended a social and realized that they're actually a little bit more achievable and a little bit more functional. You just kind of got to give yourself permission to kind of try something because each month you get to do something different. But have no fears if you have joined us and you have not received your journal yet. You can take notes, you can take screenshots. This is also recorded, especially if you show up late, leave early. This is an additional 15 minutes. Normally our socials are about an hour. This is an hour 15. So lots of kind of opportunities to really dig in and kind of figure out and navigate how you want to set up your journal. So thank you everyone for sharing all those. And then if you do want to share in the chat, it's another one of those you don't have to share. This is one of those you can share as much as you want or as little as you want. You can turn off the chat, maybe the music and my voice is driving you nuts. You can mute those as well. It becomes the opportunity of, as you kind of navigate this, what's the best way to do, what's the best way to for you to approach this. Same thing with maybe you just want to get ideas. You don't even want to open your journal for these sessions because you do it later. All of those are great. There is no right or wrong way to journal. But if you have a question just for myself and Maya, that'll be under the host and panelists. Or there's a really awesome Q&A feature at the bottom of Zoom where you can send a question directly to myself and Maya, and we can answer those there. So if you got lots of questions that maybe you don't want to put in the big chat, you can absolutely join us there. So with that being said, a couple of our reminders is, as always, be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Please respect everyone's privacy. Obviously, no hate speech or bullying. Please limit the repetitive product and accessory questions. And then all of the kind of customer care inquiries should be redirected to headquarters under hello@silkandsonder.com. Maya and I know kind of some information, but we really do not have the plethora. So you can definitely ask us, as we said, in the chat or the Q&A, and we will try to do our best to answer those questions. But as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. I always keep that as a reminder for sure. Even I use it as like, if you got to set some mental barriers or mental boundaries, because some of these prompts can trigger kind of all the feels and all the emotions. And while we absolutely celebrate all those feelings and emotions, this shouldn't be negative. This shouldn't be triggering. This should be a kind of positive tool that we can move forward to kind of create things that we want to stop, start, and continue. But also under being fully aware that you're going to have the feelings, you're going to have the thoughts. And sometimes there are those days that you thought you were here and you're ready to go, but life happens and you're just not mentally there, or you just don't, you're not ready to deal with things and talk about things, or you don't want to do it. Set up those mental barriers for yourself. Hopefully, as always, we are here to celebrate the wins, cheer on the accomplishments, but also we are here to provide some of the extra support or love that you need, just putting it out there if you're having a bad day, rough day, or some of those things. So we are here as a kind of safe space, friendly space, or even just the opportunity to throw things out into the universe, kind of unjudged and uncommented on, just so you can feel that kind of relief, either mental or emotionally, all the good things. So this month, ambition. Ooh, the first thing I thought of when it came to ambition was ambition is kind of a dirty word. But I completely disagree with that. But I do know that there's just a lot of things that are roped up into kind of this teeny tiny word. One of those, and I feel like it becomes a tricky thing to navigate, but I think a lot of it is going to have to be, at least on my end, is kind of a still self-acceptance that ambition is a good thing. Having a plan is a good thing, but being able to adjust and being adaptable is something that, I pride myself on. So I feel like that goes hand in hand with ambition, is to definitely be realistically ambitious, but also have a backup plan or a safety chute, as I always say. But I also know that, again, ambition can also be tied to, I kind of had some flashbacks when I was doing, competitive sports, competitive speech and debate, where ambition definitely was stifled a little bit, and things that should have been fun, now it kind of boggles my mind a little bit that we turned speech, and these are like monologues, dialogues, duets, kind of speeches, those type of things. We turn those into competition. And so I feel like I sound a little nuts when I talk about it, especially now over here in Scotland, how we kind of turn something so innocent into something competitive. But um, I appreciate the type of drive that it turned me into, because I feel like there's definitely been a lot of times where I have lived away from friends and family. I have a great support system, but there are those kind of dark, quiet hours where you got to be the one to kind of pick yourself up. So that's where I absolutely lean on the ambition that I have and the pivot that I want to do. So I know, again, this can definitely have all sorts of conflicting feels. So again, let us know. But the good thing is that if this isn't your jam this month, we're going to have a new month, a new theme next month, and a new theme after that, all those things. So I feel like the tougher I have it with the theme tends to be a little bit more of an opportunity from some self-growth and self-reflection. But I do like some of those that I can truly just wholeheartedly embrace, just to kind of hit the relief valve a little bit. So thank you everyone kind of for chatting about the ambition. If you haven't kind of read Meha's letter here, is that, again, just because I've described ambition, we know that ambition looks different for everyone. So again, no need to compare there, but also being able to recognize the opportunity to reset, recharge, and refill on cups, which I do think is a great start of a new year, because again, I feel like new year is always that, again, weird emotions of excitement, gratitude, the overall, all the feels. And sometimes it's also kind of that, we have the sprint of the last 3 months with holidays, and that tends to be, adding its own kind of, this may be an opportunity January to kind of take that, deep breath that you've maybe been holding in a little bit, as kind of an opportunity to relax. But I also know that once you kind of, have that big feeling of excitement and emotion, that kind of the crash at the end can be a little bit on the emotional side as well. So make sure that we're still carrying from December's theme, which is celebration, to making sure that we are still celebrating those wins, especially when it comes to kind of the self-ambition. I feel like celebration and ambition definitely go hand in hand. So I feel like, again, the great connection across the months are certainly there. Okay, and so here's our agenda. I know some folks that are just now joining us. We haven't started. You just got to listen to my whole spiel about how we do these things, my thoughts on ambition. But we're getting ready to move to the open activity, so this is where you guys get to start doing the work. So we're going to start with an ambitious acrostic poem. So please find a blank page in your journal, or maybe a notepad. You don't have your journal yet. It could be the scratch pad, your thoughts journal, but a blank spot, because we are going to do an acrostic poem. Don't worry, I've got some examples. But what we want you to kind of do is think of the first thing that comes to mind when you think of the word ambition. This is another one of those, take off the filter, take off the second guessing, just write it down. And so try to come up with at least 8 words or phrases that describe ambition. And so that could be maybe the first line, the first letter of each line in ambition can be used there, or maybe it's, for you really creative people, maybe it's that kind of full sentences across some of those. So here is what your example was going to look like on that blank page. Is you're going to have ambition going vertically down the side. And then here are a couple different examples. And then on the next slide, I've got a couple different examples from the Silk and Sonder app. So you'll have a lot of opportunity for examples, but I am going to start talking, let you guys work on your acrostic poem, and we will see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. All of your acrostic poems are amazing. Um, we are certainly fans of this type of exercise because it feels like it starts to get some of the creativity, as well as just some of those kind of, flexing some of those writing skills as we get started for this, because the monthly setups tend to be a little bit more on the kind of a lot of writing, kind of other thinking, kind of a lot of those things. So always great to start out with something like this. But loved seeing the ideas that you're throwing out there. Your poems are very inspirational, very amazing. And I also love kind of, it's a very creative way to kind of see other people's definitions or their feelings towards the word. But I always like, again, still seeing that kind of common thread amongst all of us in that type of setup where all of us definitely have like pieces of ambition that we can all kind of relate to, but then there's still some of those unique deviations based on whatever life experience that you have. So thank you everyone for sharing. Appreciate for those that are here a little bit late, just because of the technical issues. Thank you for sharing that with us. We're sharing it with the headquarter folks right now. So definitely make sure you include that in the survey at the end, just so we can continue to track that. But now we're going to move into kind of the monthly planner portion of this. So make sure you have your January journal. Don't worry if you don't, you can take notes because we'll provide what those pages all look like, and make sure you got your post-it notes handy, or again, I'm a pad of paper person that'll then carry over as well. But we're going to start with just highlighting some of the changes. So I know some of you newer folks, or if this is your first time with it, these are all going to be brand new to you. But for some of our other folks that maybe have been with us a while, there have some changes. They've made some changes to the, I think, infamous sleep tracker with different modifications. Same thing with the meal planner, looks a little bit different. They took away the breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack acronym so that it's got a little bit more space. And as someone said, I don't have to do as much writing out. And then they also changed the weekly spread for those weekend days that just kind of fell a little bit wonky on some of the pages into that more kind of vertical spread so that there's not consistency across all 7 days. So again, if you're new here, don't worry. These are just kind of little changes, but as always, definitely include in the survey at the end if you have any ideas or kind of repurposing ways that you want to see some of these, because these are certainly consistent things that we've seen changes on. So we are now going to reach into, again, in the journal, we're going to do our yearly reflections. And so here is what that example looks like. And I would say if you've attended my socials before, if you haven't, I always like to make some subtle modifications because I'm a big fan of rules and weirdly guidelines. So as soon as I saw this, I definitely wanted to repurpose this, especially when I was looking kind of at yearly reflections, because there are certain things that I just don't think applied to my situation. So I made changes. So this is my permission that you can change these categories if you need to. So if they don't apply. So for example, I kept things I achieved, but instead of people I met, I changed that to relationships I strengthened. So I did just move, relocated, completely uprooted, went to a completely different place. So when it talks to people I've met, I've met a lot of people, but I don't want to kind of focus on just like the laundry list of names that I saw. It was more of the relationships that I strengthened instead of people I met. So for example, one of the relationships I strengthened is one of my amazing coworkers has now turned into a true friend. She's that perfect kind of cheerleader where it isn't just people swapping stories anymore. It is kind of asking, we had some of those deeper conversations of how can we support each other more? How can we be better advocates for each other? And so those are kind of the things I wanted to reflect on. So for me, I changed it again from people I met to relationships I strengthened. I kept the places I went because I just think that's fun. But again, if that doesn't apply to you, you can change that. And so books I read. So I consider myself an avid reader. I am always reading something, and I live really close to a library, so I'm getting to read more books. As I jokingly put it, so it meant I'm kind of reading on a whim instead of kind of targeted reading, which I think is fun. It's more of like I get to, I don't have to settle on like purchasing or kind of a long-term relationship with a book. I'm reading just what looks fun, what sounds good, what has a pretty cover. So books I read, again, was just going to be a laundry list because I didn't have any of those that really spoke to me. So I changed, instead of books I read, to events I attended, because those to me were a little bit more impactful, that I certainly wanted to reflect on this year, that I was one very lucky to attend. But also, again, those kind of really just core memories are just like memories that I think of when I think of 2023. And again, while I love books, it's not about the books, it was about the events. So I went to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I went to this amazing military tattoo, which is an elegant combination of military precision marching, but also fantastic music and just traditions across multiple countries. I love a good Broadway show. And so those are kind of the changes that I made. And so just as always, if you want to keep them the absolute same, you can, but these can also be stickers, affirmation quotes, all of those things that apply. But you also don't need to fill this out completely. Maybe this is just a one thing or a highlight or something you want to work on, but these absolutely can be anything. Or maybe 2023 was a year that you just don't want to reflect on, you're ready to move on. So maybe you can turn this into a 2024 kind of yearly wish list. What are maybe the things you want to achieve? What are the people you want to meet? What are places you want to go? And then again, books or activities or something else you want to do, kind of as a way to turn it into a bullet style vision board. If vision boards aren't quite your jam, I'm usually indifferent to vision boards. I think it's a lot. So the opportunity to kind of bullet journal this and to kind of list as aspirations kind of fits a little bit more my style. But again, there are no right or wrong ways to do this. I'm going to give you guys some opportunity to work on this. And let's shout out those kind of things you achieved, who you met, where you went, what you read, what you did, all the fun stuff that you want to reflect on from 2023. Thank you everyone for sharing. For those of you that are new, I would say this is kind of just a single feature because it is the start of the year. So normally we don't have yearly reflections, obviously. We do have monthly reflections, so you'll see that. So this one's a little bit different, a little bit unique. That's why it looks maybe a little out of place. But thank you everyone for sharing your amazing repurposing and ideas for these. And again, that's what I really love about these type of prompts is you can absolutely change them into what fits for you. What is something you want to focus on? Because I saw someone, instead of things I achieved, things I survived, because that's the year that they're going. And I think that's amazing. And that's really powerful. Same thing with instead of just the books they read, things that they learned from the books, an ability to kind of take what I would say is kind of these kind of surface type questions, but being able to elevate them and dig a little bit deeper on the reflective side that you want or that you need. I think it's magic. So that's why, again, if something just doesn't fit, change it up, make it look a little bit different. You can do all of those things. We are breaking up with perfection. Breaking up with perfection is also breaking up with maybe things that just don't speak to you or different ways to answer it. Because all of us have different approaches, different creative ways that we can relate to things. So make it work for you. Don't try to fit yourself to work for this. So now we're going to move into the December reflections. So this is an opportunity that we get to take at the end of each month to reflect on that previous month. And we're going to look at the wins, challenges, favorite moments. But then it's an opportunity to kind of highlight what you want to start, what you want to stop, and maybe what that you want to continue. Because then we can take some of those ideas and turn them into those actionable steps that we can then move into our intentions, our habit trackers, and our mood trackers, because then all of those things can then be broken down into the weekly setups so that you can take those teeny tiny little steps forward so that you can start making those strides. So again, for the December reflection, yes, we're on page 8 in the January journal. So the wins can be something that you did, something that makes you smile, made you happy. These can be those roses, those kind of big monthly roses, or those glimmers. Challenges, again, we always like to acknowledge those challenges because it was either something that you overcome, something that didn't go well, something that was out of your control, stumbling block, kind of frustration. But again, these are kind of a expansion of maybe the rosebud thorn exercise. You can always use your phone or kind of a calendar to look back on this. And it's another one of those things, like I always like to see when it comes to doing the reflections, do I have a harder time finding wins and the challenges come easy? Or do maybe I have a easier time finding those wins and maybe the challenges became a little bit more difficult? I feel like that is what's kind of nice about this particular tool, is because if I start to dwell a little too much on the challenges, I certainly want to pivot into my start, stop, and continue, which is usually stop focusing on the negative and start celebrating those wins as kind of those friendly reminders at the beginning and at the end. But again, you don't have to connect these pieces together. That's just kind of a way to approach. So I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to reflect on December. Again, let us know, did you have some wins, some challenges, or maybe you want to focus on what do you want to start, stop, and continue as we move into the new month of January. Thank you everyone for sharing. Loved celebrating your wins along with you. Sending some of the extra support needed for some of those challenges, as well as looking forward to some of those things that we can start, stop, and continue. So again, I think this is a really elegant way to close out the previous month, but then propel some of those things that we have discovered into kind of how we can continue on our self-care journey. So now we're just switching over to the next page with our January intentions. And so this is, again, another kind of grounding point or baseline. I come from a science background, so I always want like baseline truth or ground truth. So this is where I start for January, because then I'll start adjusting my habits or moods or things that we call variables. Well, I'll have controlled variables and things that I change. But this is that grounding point of things that I can come back to with how I want to approach January. And so you can do a lot of different things with this. You can use ambition to set your intentions. Maybe you're going to focus on one particular area of self-love or self-talk. I am a fan of using a particular band and then using their song titles as intentions, because I am always listening to music. I'm always creating playlists. So it gives me an opportunity when those songs come up to kind of refocus on that area. And then maybe it's also how you want to feel this month in each area, but you can always use stickers, colors, images, kind of all those things. Or you can carry over one thing you want to let go of or one thing you want to start doing. So here are some examples. So the one on the top left, they have broken it down into 2 ideas for each of the categories, which is things they want to do in each category and things they want to let go. Same thing with the one in the middle, is they want to do more of these things for their, spiritual health, personal life, physical health, and less of. So you can kind of look at it as a more or less, which I love this seesaw duality. Or maybe it is just kind of some sticker affirmations that kind of fall into those, as those are just kind of like larger big idea reminders you want to give yourself. Again, maybe it is just stickers, maybe it's doodles. As we said, if you've got your post-it notes that you're just practicing because you're not quite ready to put those down on the page yet, as you can think to it, you can absolutely do that. Because again, this is kind of a guidance for the whole month. And you can always come back and revisit these and change them. Another person is focusing on, they pulled in the theme with they want to have the ambition to in all the categories. And then the other one is asking themselves ways they want to show up for themselves in kind of that category. So all of those categories are there. Don't worry, I'll go back through these examples as well. And then again, for those folks that maybe these categories don't work for you, can change them. So the one on the left, instead of spiritual health, it's mental health. Instead of money management, it's home management. Instead of professional goals, it's learning goals. Because again, we know that everyone is at different milestones in their lives. So maybe there are just different things you want to focus on. And same thing with, key relationships. Doesn't necessarily have to be your romantic relationships, or maybe that is something you want to focus on. These can have different meanings. And again, you can absolutely change any of them that don't suit you. And same thing with, maybe there's something that you just don't really want to focus on and you want to focus a little bit more on something else. You don't have to use all 6 intentions. Maybe you just want to tackle 3, or maybe it's one of those you really want to buckle down on, maybe a physical goal. So maybe that's the only one you're focusing on. You don't have to use all of them if you don't want to or if you don't need to. This is, again, just a tool to kind of ground some of those intentions that you have, so that we can kind of carry them over into the trackers as well as the weekly setup, so that we can continue to start, stop, as well as continue some of those habits we're developing. So I'm going to give you guys some time to work on this, and we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. Um, loved seeing some of the different approaches and the repurposing. Someone has now got a section for kind of a Maya space to focus on some self-care, changing spiritual health to morning routine, which I think is really creative. I certainly struggle with a routine. I like the idea of a routine, but I feel like sometimes my routine is just more of like which lights I turn on, turn on the heater, opening the curtains. I feel like that becomes more of like an opening ceremony by some morning routine. So I need to kind of focus on that. And then I love that folks were kind of leaning into the theme of ambition. So someone was going to start all of them with I have ambition too, similar to someone that had ambition too here. This is one of those that I feel like it can be a little intimidating, especially when you kind of got to break from the idea of I am not forcing myself to set something so permanent for the whole month. It's certainly that's where like kind of bigger ideas can come into play, and then you can kind of narrow it down each week or different focus points. But I will also say for some of the newer folks, this was a page that took me a while to really get into stride on. So if this page intimidates you, it's going to take some time and maybe some work and maybe some adjustments. And then I also loved that after the holidays, someone was like, I'm tired. I want to sleep. And so sometimes, again, the ironic thing is the not having the ambition to really kind of get creative with the intentions. So that's why I think it's always nice that you can always come back to something a little bit more, sticker driven or just photos. I know one of our other facilitators, Bailey, has definitely just used cat photos before. It's definitely one of those things like it's an opportunity to, again, find some sort of baseline or some sort of place that you can kind of put things that you want to start, stop, and continue as you kind of move along. But again, there are no right or wrong ways to do this. And just because you do it one month, you may do something a little bit different the next month. Or for those, I also feel like I fall into a creature of habit component. So maybe this is another one of those things. So again, thank you everyone for sharing. Love seeing those very different repurposing ideas. So now a kind of a ways will carry over into the trackers. I am certainly one of those folks that I showed up for the trackers, stayed for the journal reflection and kind of digging in a little bit deeper, but also some of the kind of other ways that I can make my trackers feel a little bit more, have a little bit more of an impact for me other than just like things I want to check off a checklist. But I mean, they absolutely can be if that is what you need, if that is what you're looking for at the moment. I feel like it's that good kind of, it can be there for the like checklist that you don't have to really think about. It just becomes part of what you do, or it can be one of those like definitely push yourself, definitely use it to move forward in whatever goals you're going on. So we are on page 10, so the mood tracker here. And so as always, there are different ways to approach this because I feel like there tends to be a lot of feelings around the mood tracker, which I do. I can only chuckle at again the all of the feelings to the mood tracker because that's kind of where we can track some of the emotions. So you can always choose 2 to 3 negative feelings, 1 neutral, or 2 to 3 positive feelings kind of to track. And there is an opportunity, maybe you just do 1 emotion per day, or I will usually try and do how I feel in the morning, how I feel in the afternoon, how I feel in the evening, because I do like to see if I dwell on some of those negative things, because I am a notorious dweller. So I want to kind of continue to break the dwelling and move on, get over it, move on. Or you can always focus on ambition for this month. Maybe you want to fill in every emotion that came that day, or whichever one is the strongest. You can use stickers, kind of pencils, doodles, any sort of kind of key to create it. But if you're not all about the moods, you can actually use it for daily affirmations. Maybe you need to track, you're more curious about your anxiety levels, depression levels, energy levels. Maybe you want to scale the feelings of those emotions. When this is certainly something that can help you kind of track some of those things. What I noticed is that if I picked emotions that I would say were on the extreme of those ends, so an extremely like happy, positive, ecstatic, kind of those emotions, and then angry, frustrated, some of those kind of like, I don't know, like said, they were on either end of the spectrum. I found that I was living in those spectrums a little bit more. So it was definitely a little bit more roller coastery. And so when I tried to use things that were a little less on the extreme, so it was like I was content, I was annoyed. Once I kind of leveled those out a little bit, I realized that it was a little less of an emotional roller coaster ride because I was tracking my emotions. So I was feeding into the, yes, this made you angry. This made you really annoyed. This made you really frustrated. And I was, again, dwelling in those. So once I kind of picked something a little bit more in neutral, I realized that I actually stayed a little bit more even keel, which is what I was looking for. Here is a feelings wheel if you kind of need some help with some of those feelings and emotions, and they're broken down into different categories. Maya also put the link to the blog post so that you can have access to this. Don't worry, again, I will scroll back and forwards through these different slides so you'll be able to use those. And then here again are some different repurposing ideas. Because if you haven't caught the trend, you can absolutely repurpose these for whatever journey you're on. So someone in the top left is tracking their particular panic attacks. The mood tracker in the middle is all of those feelings when they felt them kind of throughout the day. Same thing with someone is using stickers for those kind of feelings. And then someone broke them down into what emotions they had, and that was what energy level they had. So, you have the ability to track kind of 2 different variables, if you will. Others turn them into a book tracker. And then these are kind of recent ones. I know the holidays are over, but I did love the Christmas light mood tracker on the left, where they had their different emotions that they were tracking, so they were able to have different lights on their different string of lights for each day, as well as if they had a headache, if they're sweaty, if there were conflicts around it. So again, you have the ability to track a couple different things. Someone else has turned theirs into a yoga tracker. So it was, again, other kind of things you want to focus on and reflect on. Someone has also done it to track food, carbs versus dairy, and how it made them feel. And then, as I said, I know a couple of our facilitators has used it to do the anxiety levels. So it's how how you felt, and then you can give it a numerical number. Oh, apologies. Again, as a way to kind of quantify some of those feelings, especially if you're working with a professional in those type of areas. And then the one in the middle was where their energy was spent. I feel like that is kind of also where I've kind of put some of these things, if I don't have a challenge, but it's where am I spending my emotional and mental energy, kind of reflecting on that, as if that's a good way to spend my mental capacity, or if there are better ways to spend it. And then Jennifer O, one of our other facilitators, she actually turned it into a book tracker, because I mean, she's amazing. She bounces back and forth between a bunch of different books, which I don't have the brain for that. But the ability to kind of repurpose some of these trackers, I think is really great. So let us know how you use your tracker, or any ideas that you're kind of wanting to approach, because we also have, again, you can do the traditional moods, the 6 different moods, or you can make some modifications and track some other things. Because at the end of the day, this particular tracker shouldn't bring up something triggering or make you feel bad because you aren't filling it out. Maybe it's more of you didn't fill it out because those were not necessarily the things you need to track. So I kind of use that also to myself as like a cueing component was, why was I not filling this out? It was because I didn't pick the right emotions. So I made some of the changes. Or again, I was realizing that I was dwelling in some of those stronger emotions that I didn't want to do. So maybe sometimes, again, if you're staring at a little bit of a blank page, take some deep breaths, give yourself some grace, or also the ability to come in and change it. Maybe you just want to leave one blank because that's what you'll throw in there. And then at the end of the day is each month you're going to be able to do this something a little bit different. So let us know how you are using repurposing, or how you're kind of approaching the mood tracker. We'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing all of your creative ways to approach this. But always a fan of seeing definitely the kind of moods, the different moods to track. Meh, always cracks me up. I love it when Maya uses that one. And then again, what I feel like is this is something that if you're certainly new to this is going to take some time to maybe get your stride. But the opportunities are endless to kind of overlay a lot of these things, which I think has been a really great transition that I've seen as I've worked with this particular with the journal for longer. Is that you can overlay the what emotions were draining, how'd you feel at the end of the day, even ways to kind of track real time symptoms. So these again are really great and elegant tools that can be used. But sometimes you just may need to do some modifications or just try something, and if you don't like it, you can do it again. You can change it, or you can do it something a little bit different the next time. So now in using the theme again of trackers, we're going to move into our habit trackers. So kind of the generalization between like a habit tracker for the month and the weekly tracker is that these are kind of things that you want to do each day. But I always say I add a lens of reality for the weekly. So that's how I kind of make the modifications to my weekly versus my monthly. But these tend to be the big things that I want to accomplish. But just because that is my approach, we have some other creative examples with how they use it. But as always, you can use ambition for the focus, or maybe you just kind of want to ground yourself on another theme using ground, calm, joy, delight. Or as always, you want to carry over some of those habits from last month. I tend to carry over the same 2 or 3. But you always want to find balance. What are something that you want to do, or ones that you're going to kind of have to challenge yourself with? But as always, you don't have to have a habit for each line. Maybe you just want to do a few. I'll come back to this slide because these are just some added ideas if you're having a hard time kind of using some of those. But here are some kind of completed ones. The first one focused definitely on kind of routines and some of those kind of self-care items. And then they made a beautiful mandala by the end of it. Someone else has highlighted the difference between the weekdays and the weekends, because maybe your habits are going to be different, or maybe you want to be present on the weekends. So maybe you only track your habits during the week. Again, the continuation of the holiday one from December, they made these really great Christmas lights, again, for those type of things. Another, again, someone focusing on kind of the days on, days off, work days not. And then I'm on the cold. Here are more of those completed mandalas that I just think are amazing. And then the one in the middle is not only just a combination of the habits that they're doing, but also they track kind of the moon phase, their cycles, their weekdays, work days, see if those kind of impact their ability to do certain habits. And then at the end of the day, maybe you've just had either a vacation or you didn't feel well. So maybe you just don't track those at all. But instead of just leaving them blank, the person bottom right just wrote that they had a migraine. So obviously, habits were not going to be the priority at that moment, and that is perfectly fine. So let us know maybe how you approach some of these habits. Do you want to focus on a routine? Do you want to focus on, a couple of things that you want to challenge yourself? Do you make adjustments because your weekdays and your weekends look a little bit different? Love to see how you do it, and we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. Loved the question, which I feel like always comes either for the monthly setups and the monthly habit tracker, and definitely on the weekly setups, so the weekly habit tracker. And then I think it goes in line with kind of my response to Georgie was, I was definitely setting myself for some unrealistic standards. So previously, the habit that I wanted to do each day was work out. And that to me had a very different definition. That was one of those traditional like 45-minute type set things. And I was realizing that I was having a hard time kind of meeting that, and I was beating myself up over it. So instead, for the monthly habit, I put move. And then I carry that over into my weekly for how am I going to move? So maybe it's just the 20-minute commute to work. That's the walk. Maybe it is a set 30-minute based on the reality check of what my week was going to look like. And I felt like that to me was more achievable, because once I opened up my definition of move, I was actually able to achieve it a little bit more easily each day, but still opening up the ability to make sure that I was still moving in line with my fitness goals. So that's just my particular example for that. But thank you everyone for sharing. As always, we love to see your examples. So definitely throw those into the Silk and Sonder app if you are so inclined to do so. As you can see, we get a lot of examples from everybody else. And so, also with that being said, we actually have come to the end. I feel like it's another one of those is that it absolutely sneaks up on you. So we love to see your repurposing. We love to see your ideas. We love to hear how you're approaching any of those things. But as always, if you want to refer a friend, the QR codes are there. To use the QR codes, you just hold up your phone, take a picture. Maya is also putting them in the links there in the chat. And as always, the feedback survey, please definitely include. This can be scheduling, what socials you want to see, but if you do put schedule ideas that you want, make sure you include your time zone. And same thing with, kind of other additional ideas you have. Are there different socials you want to see? The layout, as we've seen the new layout, all those things. And then as always, if you show up late or have to leave early or miss an event or some of the schedules don't fit, you can have the YouTube link, which is there as well. It's not searchable, but you can bookmark it because all of the ones will be there. And I do know that there was technical issues today. The headquarters team are going to have this recording up later today because they're going to prioritize that. So if you missed or showed up late, especially with the first activity, those will be in here. I will also provide the Spotify playlist link there. And again, if you want to join Maya and I later this week, we're going to swap roles later today for the weekly setup. So thank you again for sharing. Welcome to all of our new folks. We're so glad that you're here. We hope to see you at another social. We will see you again soon. Goodbye.
I'm born to run down rocky cliffs. Give me grace, bury my sins. Shattered glass and black holes can't hold me back from where I need to go. Yellow hills and valleys deep, I watch them move under my feet. Stranger things my